Of obedience, the Milgram experiment, and the depths of human psychology. How far can people go? Even when it goes against their conscience, can they harm others just because an authority figure tells them to? These questions inspired one of the most striking and controversial experiments in the history of psychology. In 1961, social psychologist Stanley Milgram from Yale University conducted a study that revealed the darker side of human nature, the Milgram Experiment. The inspiration: war and responsibility. Milgram came up with the idea for the experiment after the trial of Adolf Eichmann, a Nazi officer held responsible for the deaths of millions of Jews during World War II. In court, Eichmann defended himself by saying, "I was just following orders." This statement deeply affected Milgram and raised troubling questions. Can ordinary people, under the pressure of authority, act against their own values? When an order is given, how easily can we ignore our moral boundaries? Milgram believed that answering these questions wasn't just important for understanding the past, but essential for preventing similar tragedies in the future. The setup: an innocent-looking test. Milgram placed newspaper ads to recruit male volunteers between the ages of 20 and 50. The study was described as research into the effects of punishment on learning and memory. Participants would be paid a small fee. They came from various backgrounds: teachers, workers, salesmen, representing a cross-section of society. There were 3 roles in the experiment: teacher, the actual volunteer; subject, learner; an actor pretending to be another participant experimenter, a lab-coded authority figure. Participants were told the roles would be chosen randomly, but the real subject was always assigned as the teacher. The learner was placed in a separate room. Every time the learner gave a wrong answer to a word-pairing question, the teacher was instructed to administer an electric shock, increasing the voltage with each mistake. How the experiment worked: the teacher would read word pairs to the learner. For each incorrect response, the teacher pressed a button to deliver a shock. The shocks began at 15 volts and increased in 15-volt increments, up to a maximum of 450 volts. In reality, no shocks were ever given. The learner, hidden behind a wall, was an actor playing a role, but the teacher didn't know that. They believed everything was real. As the voltage increased, the learner started to scream in pain, beg to stop, complain of a heart condition, and eventually went completely silent. When the teacher hesitated or expressed concern, the experimenter calmly gave scripted prompts: "Please continue. The experiment requires that you continue. It is absolutely essential that you continue. You have no other choice. You must go on." The results: a shocking reality. Milgram initially believed that most participants would stop around 150 volts. But the actual results were far more disturbing. 65% of participants, nearly 2/3, went all the way to the maximum 450 volts. Most others stopped only after passing 300 volts. Many participants became visibly distressed during the process. They sweated, trembled, laughed nervously, and even cried. But most still continued. The calm command of an authority figure was enough for people to override their own moral judgments. The meaning: blind obedience to authority. Milgram's findings made one thing clear: people are surprisingly obedient in the face of authority. Even if it means going against their own conscience, they may still follow orders. This has profound implications, not just for individual behavior, but for understanding society as a whole. Whether in war, corporate settings, or everyday hierarchies, people often comply with commands they know are wrong. The ethics: was it right? The experiment sparked major ethical debates. Participants were subjected to intense psychological stress. Some felt guilt and shame after learning the truth. By today's ethical standards, such an experiment would likely be prohibited. However, Milgram claimed that the majority of participants reported feeling grateful for the experience and said they gained valuable insight into themselves. Still, the emotional toll of the experiment is undeniable. The final question: What would you do? Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the Milgram experiment is this. What would you do? If you were in that room with a calm, authoritative figure telling you to continue, knowing that someone else might be getting hurt, would you stop, or would you press the button? Milgram's work forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Given the right pressure, any of us might be capable of obeying orders that go against everything we believe.